Welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. My name's Dualta, and in this podcast series, I will be interviewing investors, advisors, entrepreneurs, and recruiters who are based all over the world. And we will be discussing how to set up, scale, and operate a world-class recruitment company. Today, I'm joined with Seth Friedland. He is the CEO of Parker Hudson. They're a New York-based financial services and technology boutique recruitment firm. They have about 30 people in their office billing, maybe a bit more on the back end as well. And they're a $16 million recruitment business. So highly profitable, especially for such little headcount. So it's really interesting to get into the detail with him in how he's built his business over the last 15 years into becoming a really well-known and respected recruitment company in their little niche. And like most American recruitment companies, he doesn't just recruit for New York, they cover the whole of the country. So, they're working remote recruitment from New York, but with a focus on New York as well. So really great to get into the detail with him today, and hope you guys enjoy it. Seth Friedland, how are you?
I'm right here, sir.
All right. Fantastic. Great to get a chance to speak to you. With an accent like that, I can only be calling one place in the world.
New York City.
New York City, baby. Are the streets really paved with gold?
Gold in the City of Lights.
I love it. All right, Seth. So look, welcome to the Recruiter Startup Podcast. And we're really happy to have you on here. I love getting to speak to recruitment entrepreneurs, especially when somebody is working markets in different verticals that I'm not across. So I get to learn lots of an American business owner like yourself. So really excited to jump into all the detail today. But to get us started, is it true that you interviewed with 27 staffing firms coming out of university?
I did that all in about 2 weeks' time back in 1997, not to date myself, but it was a long time ago.
And how come 27?
It was just the market at the time was rampant, and nobody knew anything about staffing. The staffing world was changing from let's place an ad in the New York Times to we need true headhunters, people that were going to go out and source candidates and recruiters. And, there were a lot of opportunities at the time, and they were very easy to get interviews. And you really had to go decipher which one of the staffing organizations was better suited for you versus someone else.
What was your early introduction into the staffing world like? What did your job look like in 1997? The internet's in its early phase back then. So,
absolutely. Again, dating myself a little bit, but there was no Monster, there was no Career Builder, there was no Dice, there was no LinkedIn. So we really had to use the phone, right? It was an effort-based business back then completely. You had to pick up and you had to smile and dial all day. 100 to 150 calls a day at a minimum.
So does it break your heart now when you've got recruiters complaining to you that 30 calls a day is too many?
I'm lucky if some recruiters make 20 calls a day. Yeah, they all seem to complain in that regard. Definitely a little bit of lack of effort and desire.
Yeah, it's different though, isn't it? It's when you have so many other tools, it's easy to fall into them and not focus on the phone. Do you still feel that the phone works the way it used to?
Oh, absolutely. I think if people pick up the phone, I think it's going to work to their advantage today because the majority of recruiters of their competition are not using it, right? They're using LinkedIn InMails and they're using, their mass mail mergers out of their ATS systems and things like that, which we use as well. But, the recruiters that pick up the phone more, you can see their productivity is still much higher than the ones that are not.
And we'll jump into a lot of that later on. So what did you start recruiting back in 1997? What was your first foray into this industry?
So I spent 3 weeks in IT staffing, and I was like, I don't think this is for me. this industry is crazy. I can't do this. And, I had the opportunity to go to one of the other firms that I interviewed with. It was a financial service, non-IT staffing firm. And I just fell in love with it.
What was it about IT that rubbed you the wrong way back then?
I think I was very immature back then coming out of university. I didn't understand, the different cultures and, personalities and ethnicities, accents, so on and so forth. And, IT moved very slow back then as compared to what it is today.
Okay. So you went into financial services in the financial services hub of the world.
Correct.
What was that like? Were you walking, were you like filling jobs on Wall Street, or which areas were you after?
So it was all the areas that supported a trading environment. And it was people just like myself, right? Being in New York City, it was people from New York, from Long Island, from the Bronx, Brooklyn, Queens, Staten Island, Jersey. So it was very easy to communicate with these people that were very similar backgrounds and the way they grew up to me, no matter if they were an MD or, an entry-level analyst. It was all the areas that supported, like I said, sales and trading, operations and middle office, financial risk management, credit risk management, finance, treasury liquidity, compliance. So all of those roles.
So I'm going to ask you a question that you've probably been asked 1,000 times. Was it all Wolf of Wall Street back then in 1997 when you were taking out clients and delving into that world? Was that a true depiction of it?
Yeah, not for me as much. I mean, it wasn't Wolf of Wall Street as much, but, the areas that I saw, I think that was more on the front office trading and sales side.
Excellent. Okay. So you kind of cut your teeth at this. You do this for a few years. How long did it take you to get good at recruitment?
I was very lucky. I really picked it up naturally. I had a knack for it from the beginning. Not to say that I was the best, but I had no fear of picking up the phone. I had no fear of talking to anybody at any age level for any role. I quickly, acclimated to the verbiage that needed to be used to make people think that, and believe that I had an understanding of what it was that they do for a living without them, with them knowing, that, I didn't know what they did, right? I wasn't a CFO or a margin clerk or a risk manager, right? But I was able to sound intelligently enough to make them feel comfortable and trust me that I had their best interest in mind and was only going to show them and submit them to roles that fit their experience and backgrounds.
So you did FS for a bit. What was next?
Well, I did FS for pretty much my entire career in direct hire. And then probably about 9 years ago, went into the FS space within the temp contract and consulting arena, which was a much different, beast.
Let's digress a little bit. When you were working as a recruiter for a financial services firm, you did that for a few years, from 97 to 2002. You launched your own company in 2002. How did that come around?
Correct. So I had the opportunity, I felt it was the time for me to move on and start my own organization. I started actually in 2001. I started a company called Hudson Associates, actually. And that was a boutique staffing firm specializing in direct hire financial service placements. And then in 2002, I had met my partner, who I'm with today, who specialized in the IT vertical within financial services at that time. So it was a nice compliment to, we both had a similar ideology. We wanted to build something, wanted to grow something. And, we knew we couldn't just do it as individuals sitting in offices, right? We needed to come together and, kind of build something special.
What was the vision?
So we did both financial services and then also IT direct hire.
And was it to have a team full of full desk 360 recruiters, or did you have a model in mind that you were going to put in place? And what was your strategic vision on where you could bring the business back then?
Initially it was not like initially it was our clients and looking to hire recruiters that can support us. It didn't really evolve into being full 360 for a couple of years, right? With getting people that had the right personality and enthusiastic fits for going that 360 model of client and candidate. It took a little while, but our vision was to grow something. We all grew up from very humble beginnings, so we really wanted to get somewhere where we could see growth, and not only from ourselves but our employees, and have a profitable organization.
And at what point did you get to having people who were making you money and not just supporting you?
think it was about 3 years in, really, that really were, where we started really building out our temp consultancy practice. And that was where we hired a senior level person that came in and was able to really develop our direct hire accounts into temporary contract accounts, becoming a 360 person in that realm. But I think over the years, it's been trials and tribulations on the direct hire side of finding people that can really develop client relationships, and then also, continue to time manage themselves to be on the candidate side as well. But I'd say it was probably about 3 years in that we became very successful in our minds in doing that.
Now let's jump into that subject because it's really interesting, and I get asked all the time, how are you placing UK recruiters in the greatest sales arena in the world? Why in most industries does America have the most amazing salespeople, but yet the staffing firms seem to struggle to get 360 recruiters in the same way that they are in the UK?
I think it's a little different today than it was back when I started in this business. I think, the kids coming out of college, the recent college graduates are not as money motivated as we were necessarily back then. And not that there aren't the ones that are out there that are money motivated. I just think that, there's a lot more opportunity and different types of opportunities for them today in different sales capacities. And, I think a lot of people don't want to make the phone calls and don't want to put the effort in to get the results, right? A lot of people think they're money motivated, but when you ask them to make, 75 to 100 calls a day, they're not willing to do that, right? And, I think that scares people, right? I think also people feel, some people feel that our business is monotonous, right? They sit behind a desk all day, even though they should be out trying to build out clients and having lunch, dinners, and cocktails, and meeting candidates to meet them for coffee or for lunch to close, and and they just don't want to put that effort in, right? That it's a boring job, and they don't recognize the fruits of their labor, what the capacity really can be.
Well, I find it anything but boring. My day is so up and down. From people making me happy and sad and angry and excited, and yeah, it's tough. What do you think we could do to make recruitment more attractive to young graduates who are coming out of university now? What is it that you think that there seems to be a bit of a disconnect there at the moment?
I think there's no major for our business in college, right? In university, right? So, I think culture is very important, right? They all, most of them want a nice, exciting culture that, working with good people and having good teammates around is very important, and having a mutual respect. I don't think they want to work till 8, 9 o'clock at night. So that's got to be part of the culture is, come in and work hard from 8:30, 9 o'clock in the morning till 5:30, make the calls you need to at night, but, live more of a live to work, not a live to work atmosphere, but a work to live atmosphere. And I think, a lot of these younger, recent college grads are scared of going on a Grover's commission. So I think staffing firms in general need to move to a salary, plus commission mentality, which in the States was always something that we've, kind of gone against until recent years. So I think those are some things that need to change and are changing within the industry here.
Yeah, it's been more of a draw. Could you explain that to people? What? Because I don't think people in the UK
a loan against your future commissions, right? So giving you a salary, but it's really, if your average is $2,000 a month, and in month 3 when the money comes in on direct hire and you're owed $3,000, you'll get in $1,000 instead of the $3,000, right?
Yeah,
because paying back your draw. So I think that's we've done away with that for the most part, except for senior level people that want higher commission rates and aren't opposed to being on it. But I think for the more junior candidates that are coming out of school more recently, salary model with either overtime eligibility because of New York State labor laws and and a lower commission level.
Yeah, it's funny. Like if I was to ever go back into working for somebody, I'd only do it on a draw basis. You would just really want to back yourself. But I suppose if you're starting out your career, you don't really know if you're capable. So it's a tough one, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, listen, it's again, I'm very similar to yourself, as I didn't need a salary either. I was on it for 3 months, and then I went right on to a draw versus commission program, and I never looked back. But we also have to change with the times, right? And I think a lot of it comes from the parents, and saying, how could you take a job like that? You need to take a job with a salary, right? It's too much risk. And a lot of these younger recent college grad types are the entitled side as well, that they busted their butt in college, they went to college, they're entitled to a salary, and why should they have to put themselves at risk, right?
Yeah.
So, which I'm fine with. Listen, you just have to change your whole overall compensation model.
So tell me, how did you survive the Great Recession?
Again, I think for us, we had really good clients that, we weren't one of 20 vendors. We were one of maybe 2 or 3 vendors at the most that, whatever hiring they did, through staffing firms, we had an opportunity at. We didn't downsize at all, actually, in 2008 and 2009. We didn't offer pay cuts to anybody. We weathered the storm, right? We took it on the chin. And, unfortunately, we had to deal with it back in 2001 and 9/11 as well. And we had to learn that, there's peaks and valleys in this business. And, just because we're in a valley right now doesn't mean there's not a peak around the corner. So, we don't want to lose people just because of that. And, if that means we as owners have to take a little less for, the time being to make sure that we're ready and prepared with the right people for when the market turns today. And, we're going to do that, right? We're about our people, and we're about the growth of our organization. And, you have to take some hits and bumps in the road to get to where you want to be.
You sound like quite a responsible business owner. The culture in the UK for a lot of scalable companies is just keep hiring and get to that exit point. It sounds like you keep a bit of a war chest for rainy days. Is that the case?
Yeah, I mean, you have to keep a little bit of a war chest. We're always hiring. We're always interviewing. And as we find people, we're always making offers, right? But again, it's very hard. When you're a boutique staffing firm like us, it is our own money, right?
Yeah.
So we want to make sure we make the best decisions possible, the most educated decisions possible as we're hiring, right? There's no perfect science to this business, right? It's a perfect business with imperfect people a lot of times, and as they say. But it's I mean, yesterday alone, I think I interviewed 4 or 5 people. Possibilities, right? So, we're always interviewing, always out there in the market trying to drum up, new candidates for us. And if we think they're suitable, we'll hire. If we don't, we're going to continue to look.
When you're interviewing a recruiter, what are the type of things you look for?
Drive, motivation, personality, how they grew up, I think is a big part of, people that are successful in this business. Are they, do they have a skill that they trained for throughout their childhood and adult life so far, whether it be athletics, whether it be musician, singing, whatever it may be. I mean, I have people that have done acapella, been successful in acapella. I've had people that have been successful in sports that have worked for me. I think so, some type of training throughout your life in some aspect, because that's what I view staffing as. It's so that when we get down to the finish line of hopefully closing a deal and a placement, that we've done everything in our process, we've trained really hard, and we're ready to close the deal, right? And if it doesn't close, listen, as long as we've done everything right, then there's nothing to be upset about. But if we leave our process to the side and we don't follow through, then of course we should be upset with ourselves that we could have done more.
Yeah, I always think those kind of obsessive, high energy types tend to work out quite well. Not necessarily the loudest person, but a person who just is gritty enough to keep at it. And I can usually gather that on a phone call pretty quick. I can usually tell if they can build rapport pretty quick too. Do you still think that's important?
Absolutely. I mean, I think it is. I think, again, I think as we try to push people more and more to use the phone as opposed to just, an email message or, a LinkedIn message, I think that building that rapport is key, right? And getting in front of somebody, trying to get people to come meet you for coffee, or in the office is very important, right? Or even a FaceTime call, a Skype call, just building that personal connection, because as we all know, when we come down to the finish line, we want to have every advantage possible to hopefully closing that deal. And any kind of personal rapport, personal connection is definitely an added value to you at that point in time.
What's your current head count?
We have 30 people in New York. Out of those 30 people, everyone is, either recruiter, full desk, or business development, other than 3 people, which are support staff. So, we have direct hires, all 360. our contract staffing business is built more along the lines of a sales vertical and a delivery vertical. We felt that works best for us in our market right now. But, always looking at that to see if it could be more 360, but we feel the contract temporary space, it just moves so fast that, if someone's out at a client meeting and they send an email back to the delivery team of what they're looking for, and we can have submittals before they ever get back to the office.
And what's your growth targets?
20% a year is really where we're looking, right? Just to be conservative. And I think in the market, we've been able to do that in the last, 2015, we've been hitting those pretty well, so, again, we're in an uptrend market right now.
Yeah.
We're protecting against the downside, hopefully, which of course will come at some point. It's just part of the business. But, I think that, if we can conservatively hit 20% growth targets, for the next 7 to 8 years, that would be, a great opportunity for us to get to where we want to be and eventually hopefully have an exit.
It's a very different conversation I'm having today with you than I do with UK founders. If I ask about the growth targets, they're usually like, we want to add 100 people within X amount of time, and it's just real high growth. What would you say are the pain points to those to achieving your growth targets? Is it a candidate short market for good recruiters in New York?
Absolutely. If I could find 100 great recruiters, I would do it in a minute. That would be the greatest thing ever. But in this market, it's very hard to find quality, experienced staffing professionals. And it's very hard to get those people that aren't in the business, that come out of maybe 1-2 years of professional experience somewhere else, or even recent entry-level grads, up to that mark of hitting those kind of numbers that they need to hit in the short time frame, right? So we have a little bit more of a threshold for pain, I think, when we hire, because we hire effectively, as opposed to going out and hiring 100 people in a shot. And having a 66% attrition rate, which is the standard for the industry here in New York.
Everywhere, isn't it? Did you say 66?
Well, yeah, 66%.
Yeah, isn't it? One survives out of 3. Isn't
exactly.
That
so the reality for us is, if we could find those people, it'd be great. We're actively using, recruiters of recruiters. We're actively putting up our own ads. We're trying to find candidates, any way, shape, through campus recruiting. But, it's very difficult to find those people that have a passion for what we do. And, in this market, if someone's a real great biller, unless their employers, something happened culturally at the organization, they're not going to make a move, right? Why would they? It doesn't make sense, right? For 5%, 15% more in commission, it's very tough for someone to just pick up and leave their book of business somewhere, especially not here in the States and things like that.
Yeah. And when we had a brief conversation, you mentioned you were tracking, the growth trajectory of some of the UK firms, and we're just quite impressed by how quickly they were scaling.
Absolutely. And they're lucky, I got to say. I mean, it's amazing that us as a U.S. organization can't hire people from Britain or Ireland. We can hire Aussies, right? But we can't, easier to get a visa. But, the British-based firms that are British-owned or Irish-owned firms can bring people in here on visas to the U.S. and lock them up for 4 to 5 years. We don't have that luxury. So for us, it's been a little bit more difficult.
Yeah. Have you looked at like setting up remote offices in other areas in the US to maybe put your sourcing team there to reduce your costs, so you could just get good salespeople on the front end? Or
we have looked at that model, but until we get the true next level of salespeople, and I call it the next generation, really, for us, of top billers and top producers, it doesn't make sense for us, right? We like the brick and mortar. We've kept our costs pretty low, even in New York City. So for us, it doesn't make sense at this point. But, I think once we get to that point, absolutely.
And what excites you most about what's ahead of us in the recruitment game over the next couple of years?
I think, listen, technology is not going anywhere. It's being innovated every day. More and more firms starting up, from the large commercial accounts, the financial service firms, the e-commerce startups. So I think there's going to be, a plethora of jobs in that space. I think within the financial service sector and the accounting finance sector that we're involved in, I think, again, they're all around the professional staffing. I think there's going to be tremendous opportunities as well. New regulatory matters coming in, new risk matters, compliance verticals. So I think that, I think overall the market's strong. I don't foresee a downturn in the immediate near future. We're always looking for it. We're always wondering when the next shoe is going to drop, type of thing. But, for the foreseeable future, everything you read and everything you hear looks very positive.
Yeah, I hope to God it continues the way it is. the, way, the, the way the way it is. So, what type of technology are you using that you think's been a game changer outside of LinkedIn?
Our ATS is pretty strong. We use Job Diva, U.S. based company here. Based on Wall Street, believe it or not. They were in the staffing vertical, got into the ATS vertical many years ago. It's a very strong platform. We use it for our mail merges. We use it for our CRM. So overall, our staff really likes it. It helps to harvest against the job boards. So to expedite some of the recruiting process, it has deficiencies like any ATS. And like I tell anybody, an applicant tracking system, a database, whatever you may call it, it's only as good as the people that are using it, the people that are putting notes in it, right? If you have no notes and you have no updates going on with it, as you're talking to candidates, it doesn't mean anything. It's not going to help you at all. So, we use the job boards like everybody else, more for our contract staff business than, our direct hire. I think that LinkedIn, of course, like you said, it's the premier right now, the primary. Indeed.com has been very good. ZipRecruiter for ads at a lower cost for ad perspective has been very strong for states. Because it goes out to the paid job boards. So I think I think you have to use every tool at your disposal. You can't be one dimensional.
If you look back, you've got a very successful staffing firm and you're highly profitable. I really like speaking to somebody who's running a profitable business because I do think that we put growth ahead of profit a lot in our industry. Is there any mistakes that you've made that you can think of that you would change if you could go back over your time again?
Absolutely. I mean, we always make mistakes and we're always learning. So, one of the biggest things I think is that we, earlier in our years together back in 2002 and 3 and 4, we really built the business, like I said earlier, more on the owners as being the main client development people. I think had we from the beginning kind of built a 360 model out of the gate, we would have been probably further along as far as our revenue and profitable numbers today. But, you just live and learn, right? You just take your experience and, you forge it forward and you make change where you need to be change. And like you said, if we feel that, we've got that next generation of people and we need to go to a lower cost model for a recruiting center of excellence, sourcing center, we're going to do that now, right? We're not afraid to spend the money on it. We just, we actually have to just always be watching and looking and learning every day.
And you mentioned just about the level of hires that you go for. In terms of what those people can make, what would a mid performer bring home before tax who works for you make? So not at the top of the room. I don't want to hear about the $1 million biller, and I don't want to hear about the guy who's failing. The person who's doing all right.
Yeah, that B player would probably can do 125 to 150, gross income, US dollars, with us at a bare minimum, and that's person putting in, working their normal day, not putting in much extra effort, but doing what they need to do during the day, right? Getting it done, and but not going above and beyond.
Yeah, how hard is it when you have principal consultants in there who are coasting along on counter and they're making good money, all right money, but that, God, if I could get 2 young, hungry people in here now, they could double this. Have you ever come across that? You must have.
Yeah, I mean, listen, you always think like that, right? You always think, someone could be doing more. And I know some of the big firms have put in sunset programs on their contract staffing side because of things like that and complacency and, because that is what happens in this business, right? People don't think especially on the contract side, is if you have 20, 30 people on billing, people don't have the mindset that at some point just fall off, in one swoop, set because, contract ended. So you always have to be pushing people and trying to get the best out of them, but you also have to recognize who people are, right? What's great about our business is that no two people are alike. And this business can be done by so many different people with so many different personalities, right? And I think that's really a great thing about it, right? As long as you keep to the core values of our business, at Park Hudson, it could be done totally differently by you, by me, by the next person. And I think that's special. But you're always looking for those top performers, but I would love, I would be okay with having 10 good, mid-level producers and then having 4 or 5 top-level producers, right? Because it's the law of averages, right? Top 10% do all the hard work and the heavy lifting, and the other people reap the benefits.
Yeah, that is true. So if you're treating everybody like individuals, what type of, like, how do you manage so many people differently? Is it still done through KPIs, or do you put people on individual
Yeah, well,
plans, or?
it's very much individualized. We're not a huge KPI organization. We have goals, we have KPIs for people, but I have a different philosophy on it than a lot of the larger organizations. I feel that a lot of the larger firms use KPIs to fire people, and threaten people. I use it more to train and develop people, right? If someone says, if I'm telling someone they need to have 10 submittals this week, and they come back and they only have five, and, I'll sit down the following week and say, why did you only have five? And I want to hear the reasons. I want to know where the requisitions we had outside our normal wheelhouse were, where's the candidate pool? Where's the client? Was the client not getting back to us? What are the struggles? What are we doing differently? How many calls did you make this week versus last week? Where you're not on the phone as much? And also maybe the person had some personal things going on that week, because we all have shit going on, excuse my language, but sometimes life gets in the way.
Yeah. And are you just doing New York specifically, or are you recruiting across the nation from New York?
Across the US from New York.
Okay. And do you keep it tight within the verticals?
Correct. We keep it very tight within our verticals of IT, accounting and finance, financial services.
And is across each location, is it true that candidates are the biggest pain point right now? I'm seeing that in all the recruiter groups. People are complaining that there's too many jobs. Is that true?
Yes and no. I mean, listen, I don't think there's ever too many jobs, right? I think that, I think it's just, again, about effort, right? And people going out and finding. I think, listen, in the IT vertical, you can't take necessarily an e-commerce developer and put them at Goldman Sachs, financial service company, right?
Yeah.
And vice versa. On the financial service side, a lot of our skill sets are very similar across the nation, because if one financial service firm is hiring for compliance professionals, usually many others are hiring the same similar skill set. So we're able to utilize those candidates over and over again. Accounting and finance, a little bit different, right? You might have a construction accountant versus an accountant that specializes in the medical field, which needs a different, technology solution.
So qualification of good jobs is important, and control of good candidates on the flip side.
Absolutely.
Okay. Well, Seth, it's been great speaking to you. Really appreciate your time, and it was great to get an insight into what it's like at a boutique within New York City.
Well, we appreciate your time as well, and giving us an opportunity to be on your podcast. And we look forward to working with you guys closer over the next coming months and years.
All right. Take care, Seth.
Take care now.
I wanted to get Seth on the podcast because I like his model. I like that they're running remote jobs from New York across the country, but are still niche in what they do. And he has a blended approach. From the closest thing you'd see here would be executive search. So when we talk about he only brings in senior people on a draw and commission, so that's you pay back your salary and your cost, and you get up to 50% of what you bill. And I had that when I was in Canada, and it's good if you back yourself, but if you're new to a market or new to the industry, it's quite risky. So I can see why he's bringing in new people on a salary and commission basis. And the thing that I really like about the business is they've been around for 15 years. He's at 30, he mentioned. He mentioned some crazy turnover number that they have as well. I don't want to quote it because I may have misheard it. But it's a truckload of money. And he could have scaled up to 100 people with the billings that they're bringing in. But he seems to be bringing in people responsibly, growing his business responsibly, and being able to take a bit of that money out of the business and reinvest it in other things. So quite a responsible business. And I just thought it was a bit of a different one to the standard UK model of let's just hire as many people as we can, scale up, and hopefully sell our business to someone else ASAP. Whereas I'm sure they will exit someday, but it sounds like he's securing his financial situation along the way and not just putting all his eggs into, I might sell this company someday. So, you don't need to have the next S3 to become rich. you could have, and this isn't a lifestyle business, this is what you would call a boutique recruitment business, especially now that he has about 30 people. So nice to get a proper American business on the podcast. And as he mentioned, if you're from Australia, I think he can sponsor you guys. And if you're in New York, reach out to him or reach out to me, whatever suits you best. We'll be back later in the week, hopefully, with another great guest. It might be another American, not too sure. Need to check it out. All right, till next time, take care.
The podcast you just heard was made using Anchor. Ever thought about making your own podcast? Anchor makes it really easy for anyone to get started. It's a one-stop shop for recording, hosting, and distributing podcasts. Best of all, it's 100% free. Sign up now at anchor.fm/new. That's anchor.fm/new to get started.